Hey guys, what's going on? In this very hot summer day, we're going to talk about why it's a bad idea to disband the police. And you might think to yourself, wait a minute, he's a libertarian. How could he be advocating for keeping the police? Because libertarians constantly rail on the police all the time. And lots of the people calling for the disbanding the police are either Black Lives Matter leftists or libertarians. So, like, how is that possible? So we're going to go into get into all of it. There's all the different topics that are in the media or that people talk about are many layers. Ogres are like onions. They have layers that a quick 2-minute soundbite on a news, like in a news article or on Fox News or CNN or whatever, like, it doesn't do it justice. Like, these things, there's so many different things to consider whenever you're trying to determine, like, what is the best policy for this? What is your opinion on something? Like, you can't just say, oh, this is good, this is bad, boom, done. Like, there's so many videos. I know in my last video I talked about it, and I talked about some other times that so many people talk about issues just in a black and white view. Like, this is good, this is bad, boom, that's how I look at the world. They don't have time, or they don't take enough energy, or they don't care to take enough energy to learn that the world is rarely that simple. And their way of just simply explaining things of good, bad, black, white, boom, boom is just a very simplistic way of looking at it, and it's lazy. It leads to inaccurate... Why can I never say that word? Inaccurate views of how the world works and how you think the world is and what you believe to be true or not, leads to very inaccurate statements because you just don't consider all these other things. So let's get into it, shall we? Let's go through a blah 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 blah. I blame the heat. Why can't you talk to the rest of you? I don't know. So in a nutshell, I 100% agree that there are many systemic, deep problems with the police force in this country that need to be addressed, that are not addressed by the mainstream media at all. Most people don't even care about it. Most people, if you ask a random person what a no-knock raid is, they have no idea what that is. Or if they do know what it is, they're like, oh yeah, they only do that like to catch terrorists and drug dealers. Actually, the vast majority of no-knock raids are used on non-violent drug charges. So no, even if they know what you're talking about, which chances are they don't, they believe an accurate view of it. Same thing with asset forfeiture. Like, what's asset forfeiture? Most people have no fucking clue what that is. And if they do, it's like, oh, that's when you, like, drug people have, like, tens of thousands of dollars in cash, so the police catch them. And even though, like, you can't be charged with crime because carrying money is not a crime, it's like, why else would you carry that much money unless you're doing illegal stuff? So it's okay. Like, they, again, have no idea what it is, or they have an inaccurate view of what it is. Stuff like that, like no-knock raids, asset forfeiture, qualified immunities, are all problems of the police in this country that people never talk about, that need to be addressed, have serious issues. Just because that I believe that the police need to be seriously reformed and major changes need to be made doesn't mean that I am against the idea of police as an entity, or the fact that I want to disband them or defund them. That's the crux of the issue, if you want to take it a 15-minute soundbite. So let's go over some things. These people who want to defund or disband the police are so incredibly naive that I have no idea how the fuck they go through day-to-day activities unless they live in some rural town in, like, Nebraska that's like 99% white and literally nothing happens there. So they're like, yeah, if the police weren't here, then we'd be fine. We'd just plant our crops and go to town and go to the bar and do whatever and everything would be fine. Like, like, you have to know that the rest of the country is not like your small town in wherever you live. 9 times out of 10, when I talk to people that want either complete open borders or to defund or disband the police, 9 times out of 10, they live in the middle of fucking nowhere where nothing happens. They have never had to call the police in their life or anything. To them, the only thing the police do, like enforce annoying laws like they can't collect rainwater, that's illegal. They can't plant certain crops, they can't hunt during certain times, they can't fish without a license. Like, to them, the police are only a nuisance. And that is a nuisance that we should talk about, absolutely. But to think like that's what the police only do, and to not think that they do other things like rescue hostages from, like, armed thugs, or rescue people who are being human trafficked, or save people from burning cars or whatever, like after a car crash or whatever. Like, to think of such a black and white issue as police bad, we should get rid of them, because, and you point to all these bad things that they do, and you say, okay, see, that's my justification. It's like you're ignoring all of the good things that they do. Again, okay, I pulled my phone out like 3 times. We're trying to get to the point here, man. We're trying to get to these things. So these people are incredibly naive, and they write these stupid little things about what they envision what they want instead of the police. The first one. You don't realize, but your brake light isn't working. Imagine a city employee signals you to pull over and says, hey, how about I place one of those lights for you right here so no one gets hurt? An hour later, both lights work and you're at home. Instead of, what they're saying is, instead of the police pulling you over and giving you a ticket or giving you a warning for having your brake lights not working, this is the alternative they are advocating for. That is so incredibly naive to think that would actually work. So all the comments on these ridiculous posts are like, so is the city going to buy everyone light bulbs for every model of car and know how to change them? It's just like, it's so undoable. Yes, on paper that sounds so cute. Instead of the police running around finding people for a brake light that they couldn't known have not working because you can't see your back brake lights, they want a city employee to just be driving around or be able to get to you really, really fast. No. This specific example said just driving around. A city employee signals you to pull over. So they want these city employees just to be driving around with all the different light bulbs of every single type of light bulb that goes in every single model car, and have the authority to pull you over and say, hey, how about I change this light bulb for you? First of all, that is ridiculously fucking expensive. And you're like, okay, maybe they won't have every single light bulb. Maybe they'll have the most common ones. That's still expensive. You want like a walking AutoZone, a driving AutoZone, all these city employees paid with, guess what? Taxes. How are you gonna afford all this? How are you gonna afford all these city's employees driving around with all these light bulbs, then having the necessary knowledge to replace every single one of these light bulbs? You know, replacing light bulbs in different cars is a vastly different scenario. They don't all replace the same. I think these people like never replace light bulbs in their cars and they have to pay someone else to do it. They don't realize how complicated it is. Sometimes it takes a long time to first of all figure out how to do it. Like, just because you know how to do it for one car doesn't mean you know how to do it for another. Like, you have to look it up. And each car has like 8 different fucking bulbs and each one's different. Like, that's why they have trained technicians to do this. So you want to pay all these city employees to just rove around, just waiting, just hoping to see someone with a broken light and then pull them over and then replace it for them. What gives them the authority to pull you over? They're not a cop. So now we're giving city employees the authority to do that? Well, that's just what we're doing with cops. You're just taking away the gun, basically. A police officer is a county employee. So basically all you're saying is you want another type of county employee to do the same thing, but without a gun. Oh, without writing fines. So that's the difference they want. How are you going to pay for all that? You think we spend a lot of money now? Like, guess every single county in the U.S. to do this? Yeah, fuck that. Do you want your taxes to go up like 10-15% to pay for that? And that's just one thing they're advocating for. That by itself would not be the end of the world. This is just one of many, many aspects they are proposing to do instead of the police. And then I know what they're going to do. I've already been in these conversations. They said, well, we would save so much money by defunding the police and demilitarizing them. We'll use that money for that instead. Okay, we'll get to why no one survives without armed guards in their city or town. We'll get to that. Why completely defanging the police is a bad idea. Demilitarizing? Yeah. Lowering those budgets just a little bit because they're so astronomically expensive? Yeah, we can do that. I totally have a conversation with someone about getting rid of the police state, the police mentality, them breaking our rights, and them having weapons of war that they could take out like small third world countries. That's how much they're armed. Like I said in the last video, they need to be armed, but not to the overkill extent that they are right now. So I'll have a conversation with you about those things, but just get rid of them entirely and just have some random city employee drive around? No, that's just stupid. Okay, so let's see what other comments. Yeah, like wait, you mean the city employee drives the AutoZone around? Like, do you think it's that simple? Yeah, I'm just going to have a bunch of light bulbs in my car. I'm just going to drive around. Next one is someone is behaving erratically and in harm's way. Imagine texting a number and having an unarmed urgent responder trained in behavioral and mental health comes within 5 minutes. An hour later, that person is safe and getting the support they need. There is so much to unpack in the stupidity of that statement. The comments, I screenshot the comments because they articulate what I was going to say anyway. An hour later, that person is dead because they pulled a gun, cops came, threats were made, cops did their job. That's a pretty utopian scenario. I imagine it. The irrational guy just killed more innocent people than the Las Vegas shooter. No one was able to stop him. Some other guy was like, I was in law enforcement my entire career. Can't wait to see what a social worker would do when they arrive to see the wife beaten to a pulp. You sissies have no idea what's going on in the street. There were lots of times, like, again, some of these posts have a kernel of truth into them. Yes, if someone is having a mental health crisis and potentially harming themselves or others, then yes, it would be beneficial to send a behavioral, like, psychiatrist or therapist or someone like that, an urgent responder who's trained these things, with the police officer to see what the situation is. And they can assess, like, yeah, this guy's okay. I can talk to him. Have the police officer back, because these people, again, like the post said, are erratic. You have no idea what they're going to do. Yes, there's some times where they're completely harmless and they can be talked down and they are okay. There's other times when they're not, and they pull a weapon, or they just start slashing people, like all those people on bath salts in Florida. Like, you're going to call an unarmed urgent responder to see someone running around eating people's face off? No, you need someone with a weapon. You need a lot of people with a weapon to defeat something like that, because bath salts make you, like, immune to pain. But, like, to be so naive is to think that just unarmed little Miss Nancy, the social worker, can just walk up to someone being irrational and potentially doing harm to her or someone else and just think she can just talk them down. They're erratic. They may be able to be talked down. They may not. You don't know. That's why the police are the people you call whenever this happens, because you don't know what will happen. You want someone with a weapon who knows how to use that weapon. And to act like the police only have guns. They have non-lethal force also. They can restrain them. They can handcuff them. They can taser them. They can pepper spray them. I know tasers potentially have killed people before, but the vast majority of people who get tased don't die. They have other options. That's why you call them. To be so naive is to think that that will work every single time. I don't know how you've ever existed in the real world. Yes, there are some scenarios where that would perfectly work, and the person gets talked down, and they come up with a treatment plan. They come up with like a number to call whenever they feel bad next, whatever. And there's sometimes you walk up to, hey, what's going on? And they just slash them with a knife. What's an unarmed urgent responder going to do to that? They're going to call someone who has a weapon and knows how to use it, aka the cops. So naive. Alright, let's keep going. Oh, and one other thing I want to point about that. How can you possibly fucking expect to have an unarmed urgent responder to get there in less than 5 minutes? Oh, within 5 minutes. Do you want them like at every street corner, like every 3 or 4 blocks in the entire country? Like, come on. Yeah, in the inner city where the building's right there, yeah, you can get somewhere in 5 minutes. How naive is you to think that we can build a system so good that you can get unarmed urgent responders to anywhere in the country wherever this may be happening within 5 minutes? Come on! The police have a huge budget as they are, and they can't get to somewhere in 5 minutes. Sometimes they can, sometimes they can't. I think the average police travel response time is 7 minutes. So that means there's a lot of times where, yeah, you're in an inner city, there's a police station, there's lots of police stations, they can get to where they're going pretty quickly. In rural areas, it takes like 20, 30, 40 fucking minutes. Meanwhile, this guy's being erratic the entire fucking time. Like, so you're going to wait like half an hour, 40 minutes for an unarmed urgent responder to come up and get their throat slashed the minute they come next to them. Because they're erratic, you have no idea what they're going to do. They may do that, they may not. There's lots of different scenarios I've read and heard about where it's completely peaceful or completely not. You want a police officer for that. Your friends are intoxicated and fighting, but you don't want them to get them in trouble. Imagine you call 311 and the crisis intervention team comes to your door. 1 hour later, your friends are sleeping it off at home. The top comment is, hey, dumb shits, we have crisis intervention. They won't respond without the police because it's too dangerous. It's freaking dreamland. It's like, maybe they need to not be drinking. Or like, nope, hand your friends the 16-ounce gloves and let them sort it out properly. It's like, there's a reason why we don't do this. Why we don't send unarmed people to potentially violent situations. Because they have a likelihood of it being violent. If this scenario is actually happening and your friends are actually fighting, I guess they're like drunk and like violent and stuff, why would you send an unarmed person to say, hey guys, what's going on? I heard you... Come on. How can you... It's dreamland. Like the comment said, like, how can you possibly think that's a good idea? We have, like the comment said, we have crisis intervention teams. They come with police in case something gets violent. The police are right there with weapons who know how to use them to make sure no one gets hurt. That's why we do it this way. I'm sorry that your friends are fucking retards who get drunk and violent. That's not my problem. Someone seems to be snooping in car windows on your block. Imagine calling your neighbors who are trained in self-defense and de-escalation and approaching the person. An hour later, the conflict is resolved and the person is responsibly getting the support they need. I like how they think all these problems get to be solved in 1 hour. So the response time is 5 minutes, and the problem is solved in an hour. So in an hour and 5 minutes, everything's fine every single time. That's what I'm talking about with naivety. Like, come on, do you think that all of life's problems can be solved in an hour and 5 minutes without weapons? Just talking. We're just going to talk about it. Yeah, with rational people, that's perfectly fucking fine. I don't know if you've noticed, I don't know if you've been outside your town at bumblefuck nowhere. Apparently not, because that's how naive you are. A lot of people in this world are very, very, very erratic and violent and stupid. This one is a terrible idea. Imagine all the gun-toting, untrained people shooting unarmed people at night every week. Hilariously bad idea. I'm the youngest person on my block. What do you think a 70-year-old couple is going to do in the creeper neighborhood? Have a rational conversation? And it's like, it shows a picture of George Zimmerman. It's like, replace police with neighborhood watches? Well, if you insist. Wow, all your neighbors are trained in self-defense? What? Wait, I'm too. It's called walking in with a shotgun and asking what's more important to them. Like, they were just, like I said, there are so many different things about these small little tidbits of examples. First of all, I can't do anything if someone's snooping around someone else's property. How do I know they're not supposed to be there? I don't know if my neighbor's having someone over, or I don't even know, some of my neighbors have big families. I don't know all of them. If I see some person I don't know looking in someone else's car, that's not mine. I'm like, they may be a visitor and look for something in the car. How would I possibly know that? Now, the minute they come to my window or my car, yeah, they're getting their head blown off. My personal property. Like, the meme was like, wait, you think your personal property is more important than someone's life? Yeah. They made the decision that their life is worth less than my stuff by going up to my stuff. But besides the point, so a lot of people don't know their neighbors. How can you expect in this perfect world for everyone to know each other's neighbors so well that they can respond to this in a quick and uniform fashion without violence, and everything's going to be okay? Good luck trying to talk to your neighbors like, hey, if something's bad happening, I'm going to call you, and we're going to go out and solve it ourselves. And be like, no, we're going to call the police because fuck that. And second of all, let's say you do get your neighbors with, again, there are a lot of old people in this country. You're going to get 70-year-old Nancy to come with you, like, hey, I need you to help me with this. She'd be like, I've been asleep for like 4 hours. I go to bed at like 6 o'clock in the afternoon. Like, what the fuck? I don't think these people have ever interacted with anyone. Like, come on, Nancy, let's this person snoop around people's cars and windows. He may have a weapon. I don't know. Let's just do it. She's like, okay. Like, just. Second of all, a bunch of unarmed neighbors come up to a person. He's just going to blast them. If he's a bad guy, he may be a mentally disturbed person who's just looking around, acting erratically. In which case, yeah, a non-violent, rational conversation approach is the right situation. Like I said, in these things, it's not 100% not going to work, but you have no idea if he's just someone who's just being weird, or he's lost, or he's having a mental crisis episode, or he's walking around looking for something. People do something for no reason whatsoever when they have these episodes. Or he could be a violent thug trying to find a window to break into, or a car window to steal or something, and then the moment he approaches, he's going to start blasting you. That's why you want police officers with body armor and with weapons. Duh. Someone is selling drugs to youth who are overdosing. Imagine being connected to a substance use service that intervenes in harmful drug transactions. Youth are supported in healthy outcomes, and the seller takes accountability for harm. Wait, did they get there in 5 minutes, and did they solve this problem in an hour? Because they just specified in this one. It might take a little longer. Imagine the drug dealer kills the unarmed government employee sticking their nose where it doesn't belong. Like, come on. It's like, hey, sir, Mr. Person with 10 rap sheet, like 10 pages long about selling drugs and you're a violent criminal thug. We heard you are selling harmful drugs to youths who are overdosing. Can you take accountability for that, and can you stop doing that? Like, are you 5 years old? Are you 5 fucking years old? You just think, hey, mister, can you stop bullying me? Okay, thanks. Okay, you're welcome. The fuck? There are so many things wrong with this goddamn thing. First of all, as a libertarian, I do agree that people have the right to put whatever substance they have in their own bodies, but as a youth, that's different. They don't have those rights. They're not an adult yet. It would be, I guess the scenario would be dependent on whether he's selling something like marijuana, which you can't overdose on, or like heroin or crack. But since he's saying they're overdosing, I'm assuming he means heroin or crack because you can't overdose on marijuana, you just fall asleep. You know, can you imagine unarmed government employees just coming to all of these drug dealers' houses throughout the entire country and just say, hey, you need to stop doing that. You need to take accountability for your actions, and you need to stop because the youth are overdosing. That's going to end up with a lot of dead government employees because, you know, there are a lot of drug dealers who aren't violent, but a lot of them in gangs who are, and they're not going to appreciate someone knocking on their door telling them to stop doing something they like doing. Like, just, the naivety is through the roof. It's amazing. You're experiencing a mental health crisis and afraid. Imagine, you call 311. Oh no, you mean not the band? Sorry. In a first responder trained in mental health comes to your door. 1 hour later, oh, that 1 hour, and every single time. Did he come here in 5 minutes? I don't know if he did, but apparently he solved the whole problem in an hour. That's just so amazing. They trust the government that much to solve all these problems in just 1 hour. 1 hour later, you're in a safe place with your consent with plans for follow-up care. Imagine the person is dangerous and you are killed. Like, come on. Yes, they might be an actual person who's like non-violent, wouldn't do anything, and having a legit mental health crisis, in which case, yes, talking to someone to help de-escalate the situation and find a resolution is warranted. You know, people trained first responders do that. You know how they do that? With the police right behind them, in case they do get violent, the police are right there. Like, we have done this for decades for a reason. You are experiencing intimate partner violence. Imagine texting a number and a trauma-informed crisis intervention specialist. That is 5 fucking words. A trauma-informed crisis intervention specialist. Try to say that 5 times straight. Meets you in a safe place. An hour later. Amazing. I'm just in awe that all of these highly qualified government officials, which I beg to you as to find where you're going to get all of these highly qualified government officials, employees, because that's an oxy-fucking-moron. How are you going to find all those people? They solved all these problems in an hour. Like, just... an hour later, you are working together to make a plan that would keep you safe long-term. Meets you. My ex had his foot on my head. If my mom had not called the police, I would not have gotten the help that night. These are some of the worst calls police respond to. Now, having someone to come with an officer, that sounds like a great idea. Our police officers are the first call for this. They can protect you and put you in contact with the right, safe help. This is in place. Imagine, like, they already do this. Yes, do the police fuck up and shoot innocent people all the time? Yeah, they do. Do they shoot people that weren't breaking the law at all? Yeah. Have they wrongfully imprisoned people? Yeah. I am never going to admit that they are perfect. They are far from perfect. They need serious reform. But if you think we're going to get rid of them all and then get all of these, what's the 5-letter word again? Trauma-informed crisis intervention specialist, then you live in a fantasy land. Do you think when someone's experiencing intimate partner violence, they can just leave whenever? Yeah, they can just meet this person somewhere, meet the specialist somewhere. A lot of times, if they could leave, they would do so already. The problem is, they can't. They are restrained. They are getting beat up. The spouse will not leave them. Let them leave the home. They say they'll hurt the child if they leave. Like, there's a number of reasons why we call armed police officers to a situation because the partner cannot escape his or her abusive partner and or the violence. So what are you going to do if the person can't leave to meet you somewhere? Are you going to call someone with weapons that knows how to use them to try to rescue them? You know, police officers do that hundreds if not thousands of times every single year in this country. They do good things. Some people are like, police officers, yeah, there's good police officers, but they represent the system. The system is bad. I'm a libertarian. It's like, why do you never acknowledge all of the good that all of the police officers do across the country every single day? Why can't you acknowledge the good and the bad at the same time like a rational adult and just say, this is what's happening. I'm not going to exclude anything the police do that are bad or good, and why don't we try to find a way to reform it so they do more good and less bad? Like, that's common sense, not just scrap the entire idea, throw in a bunch of 70-year-old Nancys and Karens, and they'll just respond to it because they're specialists and they've been trained in this, and it's all going to be fine. They can deal with MS-13 and violent gang members in Chicago and Baltimore. They're all going to be fine. They're just going to talk them out of it. And they're going to take the drug dealers and the rapists and the murderers going to take accountability for their actions. They're going to set up a little point system, a little plan to make sure it doesn't happen again. Like, yeah, that's going to work. That's awesome, dude. Whoever wrote this one has obviously never been in a situation. An abuser doesn't let you leave to meet a counselor in a safe space. Another comment. Yeah, this one is super naive. Sweet, though. Totally unrealistic. It kind of worries me that people believe it is a good idea. So clueless. And the last one we're going through. Incidents of gun violence are rising in the neighborhood. Imagine, a trauma-informed crisis intervention team works with community activists to disarm and de-escalate conflicts. People doing harm are connected to services that address the underlying problem. This is like the one that didn't say they can solve it in an hour. I guess this actually is a big problem. It's going to take more than 1 hour to solve. Sorry, I can't get through this without laughing because it's just so fucking retarded. It's like, LOL, I'm sure the street gangs are going to just drop their guns for intervention. It's like, so what happens in an active shooter situation, like whatever happened in Las Vegas or Orlando? Is a shooter going to stop and listen to a crisis intervention team? Like, our police officers are the trauma-informed crisis intervention team. Imagine you have a home invasion. Who are you calling? I'm calling the police. Yeah, duh. Actually, I'm going to shoot them first. Then I'm going to call the police. I'm like, yo, this is what happened. But I'm dealing with it first because I don't want them coming here and actually shooting me or shooting my dog. Fuck that. I can hear it now. Yes, we are the intervention service called to de-escalate, disarm you violent delinquents. Bang, 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 bang. Oh my god, they're shooting at us. Please stop shooting us so we can disarm you. How do you expect these trauma-informed crisis intervention team to disarm thugs and gang members and murderers? You're just going to walk up to them and say, hey, this is really bad for the community. This violence is really bad. What's the underlying problem that's causing you to do this? Oh, and by the way, we're going to need your weapons to disarm and de-escalate the conflict. Are you fucking kidding me? This is going to end up with so many dead government employees that on another level I might be okay with it because there's less government employees. No, I'm kidding. It's a joke. It's a joke. But do they live in a world where no one's violent? Have they never met have you never seen anything with MS-13? Or any of the hundreds and hundreds of gangs in Chicago or Detroit or Baltimore, LA, or pick your fucking city. It doesn't matter. I don't think they have. I think they have lived in their small town USA their entire fucking lives. That's like 99% white, and they have never come across any of this crap they're talking about. And specifically, the comments that one of the women said about the intimate violence is like, the person who wrote this has obviously never been in a situation. And that's all I'm pointing out. I know it's a kind of a long-winded video. It's one of my longer ones. But if you need some background noise whenever you're doing something, just listen to me ramble on about shit. In conclusion, yes, I am absolutely willing to admit that the police need reform in terms of how they respond to people with mental health crises, because a lot of time they get shot without warning or without just reason. I can totally agree with these people writing these stupid posts like, yeah, why don't we send more crisis intervention workers with the police whenever they go somewhere? Why can't the police office be staffed with these people alongside the police officer so they go together? Why can't these things work in tandem? So then they try the non-violent rational approach first, and if that doesn't work, that's why you have the muscle behind you. That's completely logical. That's how you de-escalate a situation. You don't, one, just go for the biggest de-escalation tactic first, was just shoot everyone in the head. Yeah, that's a great way to de-escalate a situation, but you could have done that less violently and potentially save lives. At the same time, you don't just send in a non-violent person, a non-armed person, and then expect just everything to be okay. Just because you believe that the police is in serious need of reform doesn't mean that you believe it should be defunded and done away with. If you think that you can protect your house against anything under the sun, then you're delusional. I don't care how many guns you have or how well trained you are or what defensive situation you have. You cannot fight off a whole gang of MS-13 members. You may be able to hold them off for a while, but there's a reason why since the beginning of time we have had armed guards, because they can respond better than just you by yourself or you and your random neighbors. Yes, it is good to have guns. It is good to know how to to know self-defense and to properly defend your home, because the police take a long time to get there. But at the same time, there are some situations that you cannot deal with on your own, no matter how tough you are, no matter how many guns you have. I don't care how macho you think you are, you cannot take a whole army on by yourself. That is why we have the police. So yeah, I am all for reforming them. I am all for ending assets forfeiture and no-knock raids and getting rid of the war on drugs and lowering their budgets. Not defunding them completely, but just lowering their budgets a bit because they are so overblown and they have incurred so much deficit. I'm all for changing their mentality and how they view the populace. I'm all for ending no-knock raids and stuff like that. That will go a long way as to lessening the amount of people killed by police unjustly. But at the same time, while I want to do all that, I know at the same time there are other situations like MS-13 drug dealers or violent thug gangs like in Orlando or New York City and stuff, that there is nothing that is going to reform them. They chose to do these things as a lifestyle, as a career. They are career criminals. There is nothing short of putting them down with a gun that's going to solve that problem. Sometimes you need to use force, and I want people that use it appropriately to back me up in case I'm just one guy in my house. I can only do so much to defend it. So why don't we focus on reforming the police instead of defunding them?